On the night of our wedding anniversary, lightning tore across the capital sky. Dark clouds roiled and a tempest raged. My good buddy Leo sent me a video captioned, "How do you convince your wife, man? I'm so jealous." I figured the rascal was just messing with me. So, I casually tapped it open, but the scene that played out on screen made my face turn deathly pale in an instant. In the midst of a storm, a Maybach was parked on a roadside by Willow Park, its whole body shaking violently. As the camera slowly panned, the Maybach's license plate came into view. Instantly, I felt a sharp dagger pierce my chest, the pain so intense, I couldn't breathe. That Maybach, it was actually my wife, Evelyn's car. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the roar of the storm outside. I couldn't believe Evelyn would cheat on me. Refusing to accept it, I watched the video 3 times over and over. Finally, I let my phone fall from a nerveless hand. Why? Why on earth, Evelyn? How could you do this to me? I mumbled to myself, feeling as if the violently shaking Maybach in the video had drained all the strength from my body, leaving me to collapse onto the sofa like a boneless heap. I squeezed my eyes shut in agony, my fists clenched tight. Evelyn and I had known each other for over 20 years. The foundation of our bond was deeper than most people could imagine. Logically, I could distrust anyone in the world, but never her. And yet, the Maybach parked by Willow Park, its color, its license plate, everything was identical to Evelyn's. I started to rack my brain for any recent changes in Evelyn. Images of her from the past replayed in my mind, but I couldn't pinpoint anything different about her lately. To the outside world, Evelyn was the chairman and CEO of the sterling enterprise and also the kind of devoted wife other men envied. In my eyes, she was gentle, considerate, virtuous, and understanding. An impeccable wife, someone I valued more than my own life. My trembling hand reached for the phone again. I wanted to call her to ask what on earth was going on, but my hand holding the phone shook so violently that I powerlessly set it down again. She had once said I was her life, that she would never betray me in this lifetime. Faithful until death unless her own life ended first. I was afraid. Afraid that confronting her directly would break her heart. She loved me as she loved her own life, and I her. But that Maybach was her car, and besides me, she'd never let anyone else drive it. My fists were clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I struggled to compose myself. My gaze eventually settled on the clock on the wall. A clock we'd hung on our wedding day. We had a pact. No matter what, neither of us would come home later than midnight. Even if out drinking with friends, 1 a.m. was the absolute limit. Listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall, I thought, if she wasn't home by 1 a.m., did it mean she'd found someone new? Should I just disappear from her world? It was 11 p.m. now, 2 hours until her deadline. I took a deep breath and went to the window. Outside, the lightning and thunder continued their assault, but the streets below were eerily, unnervingly quiet. I stood there silently by the window, waiting for her return. Every passing car sent a jolt of hope through me, only to be followed by an endless wave of disappointment. The wait felt eternal, but time inevitably marched on. I glanced at my phone. It was already 1 a.m. She had to come home. Tears instantly streamed down my face. I slammed my fist into the wall with all my might, and blood slowly trickled down its surface. The searing pain in my fist was nothing compared to the heart-wrenching agony of this cruel, merciless reality. Evelyn and I grew up together. We'd shared every sweet and bitter moment. We were inseparable. As adults, we became husband and wife, closer than kin. Her betrayal has left me adrift, questioning everything. Childhood bonds, first loves, eternal devotion. It all feels like a cruel joke to me now. From this day forward, I will never believe in love again. No one wants to die. But right now, utterly devoid of hope, death is all I desire. My fist clenched in impotent rage. I threw open the door and began to climb. Step by agonizing step toward the villa's rooftop. The muscles in my face twitching violently. Each step felt like a journey through time. Visions of our past happiness flashing before my eyes. We met under the sycamore tree at the orphanage and started school together. Whether it was to or from school, in the park, or on the streets, our shadows were always intertwined. Then during her university years, her biological parents found her. Overnight, she transformed from an orphan into the young heiress of the Sterling enterprise. But she couldn't bear to leave me behind. I remember it clearly the day she told her biological parents that her only condition for acknowledging them was their unconditional acceptance of me. I was an orphan, a graduate of an ordinary university. She was now the heir to the multi-billion Sterling enterprise. Naturally, her parents wouldn't agree. I knew it, too. Though we were childhood sweethearts, we now belonged to two different worlds. I objected to her making her reunion with her family conditional on me. I only wanted her to be happy. I could bear anything else alone, but she said, if becoming the Sterling family's heir means I can't have you by my side, then I don't want the title. We were orphans to begin with. We don't need another identity. Perhaps her parents felt they owed her too much, for they eventually, albeit reluctantly, agreed. Her father said to me, Julian, you and Evelyn grew up together and share a deep bond. If you don't mind, from now on, you'll be like a son to me. Those words were pleasant. I could still sense his underlying reluctance. Later, after we graduated, she formally joined the Sterling enterprise while I chose my passion, teaching and shaping young minds. Our different paths didn't change her. She treated me as wonderfully as ever, and that never wavered. In her third year at the Sterling enterprise, disaster struck. The plane her parents were on crashed. She was an orphan once more. The only constant was her status as the Sterling enterprise's heir and now its CEO. However, her parents' sudden deaths threw the corporate power transition into chaos. She juggled funeral arrangements with tackling a myriad of internal company crises. In just half a month, she grew gaunt, losing so much weight, it pained me to see. All I could do was stay by her side, a silent shadow, unsure how else to help. It was during that period she revealed another side of herself, swift, decisive, and ruthlessly efficient. In a single month, she seized complete control of the Sterling enterprise. Her name becoming legendary. Once business was settled, she reverted to her old self, collapsing into my arms, sobbing her heart out. If you hadn't been with me, she choked out. I don't know what I would have done. I might not have made it through. My heart ached. All I could offer was a patient ear and hollow words of comfort. As she spoke, she drifted off to sleep in my arms. I gently carried her to bed and turned to leave. But she startled awake, jumped out of bed, and clung to me desperately, crying, I have no family left. Only you. Let's get married. I wanted to refuse. The chasm between our statuses was too vast. But her tear-filled, pleading eyes broke my heart, and I agreed. She said, you are my life. I won't let you suffer the slightest bit. Marry me and you'll be the happiest husband in the world. And after our wedding, it was true. At the company, she was the aloof, formidable CEO. At home, a devoted and caring wife. She never came home late, not once. But tonight was the first time she hadn't come home on time. And it's our wedding anniversary. Thinking of all the little things from the past, I found myself on the rooftop. The howling wind, lightning, thunder, and torrential rain, it all continued, showing no sign of stopping. I climbed the high steps on the rooftop, and the downpour instantly drenched my clothes. I roared at the sky. Heavens, why are you doing this to me? Tell me, what on earth did I do wrong? I yelled at the sky for what felt like an eternity, just hoping a bolt of lightning would strike me down so I wouldn't have to suffer like this anymore. But aside from the wind and rain engulfing me, nothing happened. Looking at the city lights in the distance, I knew that if I just took one step forward, I would finally be free. I wouldn't be in so much pain. I closed my eyes and screamed my lungs out again. To hell with this damn love. To hell with undying true love. It's all goddamn lies. Gritting my teeth, I took a step forward. My legs buckled and I tumbled headfirst down the high steps. Only then did I remember I'm terrified of heights. I didn't want to fall to my death. I wanted a more dignified way to go, but it was too late. Just then, Evelyn's desperate voice suddenly cried out, "Honey, no." Hearing her voice, I gave a bitter smile. I'd actually forgotten again that I'm terrified of heights. Evelyn, your affair led to my death. I wonder if you'll even regret it. But I thought I was dead. When I opened my eyes, I found my face pressed against a cold pile of sand. I then realized there was a small landing below the steps and someone had left a pile of fine sand there, the kind used for plastering walls. I hadn't died, but I could feel blood trickling from my forehead. Yet, I couldn't feel a thing. Evelyn ran to the edge of the steps, wailing, "Honey, why would you do this? If you die, how am I supposed to go on alone?" I rolled over and looked up at Evelyn, my heart still pounding, and asked, I'm still alive." Hearing my voice, Evelyn laughed through her tears. "Honey, what are you talking about? Of course, you're alive. Quick, come here. I'll pull you up." "No," I said, looking at Evelyn's outstretched hand. I got up and took a step back. "Were you at Oak Ridge Park tonight?" "Oak Ridge Park?" Evelyn faltered. A flash of lightning illuminated her, and I clearly saw her shiver. "Honey, why? Why are you asking that?" I pressed on, furious. "Just tell me, were you at Oak Ridge Park tonight or not?" No, I wasn't." "Quick, come up. I'm begging you." Evelyn's voice trembled slightly, making me suspect she was lying. "Then, how did you get back?" I asked. "I took a cab." "You wouldn't want me driving in a storm like this, would you?" I was speechless. I had indeed warned her not to drive in the rain. I started to resent Leo. "Damn you, Leo. Why did you have to send me that video? You made me misunderstand Evelyn and you nearly got me killed," I said, ashamed. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I had a terrible nightmare. I dreamt you, damn it, I dreamt you cheated on me, didn't you?" Evelyn sobbed, a hint of reproach in her voice. When I didn't answer, she pleaded again. "Honey, please. I'm begging you. Come back up. It's dangerous down there." All right, honey. I'm coming." I hurried up the steps and onto the rooftop. Smack. She slapped me hard across the face, tears streaming down as she cried. "You idiot. Trying to jump off a building over a dream. You scare me to death. Do you know that?" Ignoring the stinging print on my cheek, my heart ached as I pulled her into my arms. I opened my mouth, but in the end, I couldn't bring myself to mention the video. Downstairs in the living room, Evelyn, her eyes red, was dabbing medicated oil on my scrapes. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Honey, you didn't drive a car back, did you?" The moment I spoke, I stared intently into her eyes. If she said she had, it would mean her words on the rooftop were a lie, meaning the car parked by Willow Park was hers and she was the one in it. Evelyn's hand, still dabbing the oil, froze. Tears welled up in her eyes and she began to cry softly. Her tears were my biggest weakness. Helpless, I quickly backed down. "Honey, I'm sorry. Please don't cry. I believe you." Only after I reassured her repeatedly did she stop crying. But a thorn of doubt remained lodged in my heart, making me deeply uneasy. After Evelyn finished tending to my wounds, she came over and hugged me. "Darling," she began, "I want to ask you something, but promise you won't get mad." "Okay," I nodded. "Go ahead." Evelyn looked into my eyes cautiously. What if one day I actually cheated on you?" The word cheated struck a raw nerve. I whipped my head around, fixing my gaze intensely on her eyes again. Her eyes darted away, flustered, unable to meet my gaze. She quickly buried her face in my chest. I said, "What if?" I took a deep breath, stroking her hair. "There are no what ifs," I said, a hint of sadness in my voice. "If that day ever truly came, I would disappear from your world and set you free." Evelyn's body trembled slightly. Then she laughed. "Don't worry, I won't give you that chance. And even if you cheated on me one day, I'd forgive you once." I pushed her away abruptly, stood up, and stalked into the bedroom. There's no room for cheating in my world. I could clearly feel Evelyn was testing my boundaries. Evelyn followed me in, hugging me from behind. "Darling, you're angry, aren't you?" she said, a light laugh in her voice. "I was just kidding. Please don't be mad, okay?" I sighed and turned around. I wanted to tell her I loved her more than life itself, that I didn't want to joke about something like this. Just then, her phone suddenly rang. She pulled out her phone, glanced at the caller ID, and a flicker of panic crossed her eyes. Without a word, she hung up and then turned off her phone. She didn't know, but that simple action made something inside me snap. It was only then I remembered she'd suddenly developed this habit over the past month. She wasn't like this before. She never used to avoid taking calls in front of me. I don't know when it started, but she began stepping out to take her calls. And now, though she didn't step out, she didn't take them in front of me either. She just hung up and powered it off. After more than 20 years together, I knew her inside out. She definitely had a secret, one she was afraid I'd find out. Thinking about her recent strange behavior with calls, coupled with the video Leo recorded tonight, I pretty much concluded she was cheating on me. In that instant, my heart felt like it was being violently squeezed, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. She looked up, saw my pale face, and explained in a panic, "Honey, it's our wedding anniversary today." I didn't want anyone to disturb us, so I turned off my phone. Her flustered explanation only made me more certain she was hiding something. But I truly loved her. Loved her to the very marrow of my bones. She wasn't just my wife. She was my companion of over 20 years. My only family in this world. My heart was bleeding. I thought anyone else in this situation would find this unforgivable. But still, I wanted to swallow the pain and give her a chance to turn back. Whatever has already happened, let me bear it alone. Forcing a smile, I pulled her in my arms, a bitter taste rising in my throat. "Sweetheart," I said, "if you ever find out I've cheated on you, please don't forgive me. I wouldn't forgive myself. I'd disappear from your world." Evelyn was very smart. I thought she would understand my hidden meaning. "Don't." Evelyn hugged me tighter again. "If that day ever comes, I would choose to forgive you because I love you." I didn't know if she genuinely hadn't understood or she was pretending not to, but my heart had already died once for her with this. And in that, I'd already given her a chance to turn back. I believe she loved me. She was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. If she didn't love me, she wouldn't care about my feelings. But if that love was split in two, half for me and half for another man, then I'd rather not have it at all. I'd already warned her. If she insisted on this path, then my only choice would be to leave her world. I gently patted her head, a touch of sadness in my voice. "I'm a bit tired. Let's get some rest." On our anniversaries in previous years, we'd make love all night as if trying to merge into one another. This year, however, I passively let her lean into my embrace. Neither of us spoke, and we drifted off to sleep, each lost in our own thoughts. Early the next morning, I woke with a start to find her side of the bed empty. I went to the living room and immediately saw her bustling about in the kitchen. Watching her move about, I felt a daze come over me. In our daily life, she wasn't like other wealthy people who hired personal chefs and maids. She only employed a part-time cleaner. I couldn't understand it. A woman so thoughtful and domestic. Why would she cheat? Just then, she turned, her eyes full of me as she smiled. "You're awake. Go wash up. Breakfast is ready." After washing up, I sat across from her at the dining table. Breakfast tasted the same, but I was much quieter than usual. She looked up and asked, "Honey, how about we go see a movie after you finish work?" I forced a smile and nodded in agreement. Eventually, she left for her company and I went to the school. The familiar scent of books washed over me, lifting my spirits considerably. Work is the best way to kill time. In the blink of an eye, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My last class of the day was about to begin, and after that, my workday would be over. But it's like they say, when it rains, it pours. I had just finished my last class when a student suddenly fainted, foaming at the mouth and convulsing. It was a frightening sight. My first instinct was to pick up the student, carry them downstairs, put them in my car, and rush to the hospital. As I was driving and nearing Cedar Creek Hospital, I instinctively glanced towards it. By the roadside near the hospital entrance, I saw Evelyn's back. A man was standing beside her. Just then, the man turned his head with a smile, and I caught a glimpse of his face. I had to admit, the man was strikingly handsome, over 6 feet tall with sharp features. Even I found him attractive. My brow furrowed. I didn't understand why Evelyn was here. And who was that man with her? What was their relationship? Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the man intimately place his hand on Evelyn's shoulder. My pupils instantly constricted. My mind roared, then went completely blank, and I slammed on the brakes involuntarily. The screech of emergency brakes sounded from behind me. The driver of the car behind got out and started yelling, "Are you insane? Why'd you slam on your brakes like that? Got a death wish?" Snapping out of it, I ignored the driver's curses and sped off. By the time I turned around and drove back, Evelyn was gone, suppressing the deep ache in my heart. I had just finished helping the student with the hospital admission procedures when her call came. "Honey, can you come pick me up from the company? I'm too tired to drive today." I froze. How about you be at the company? Just an hour ago, I'd clearly seen her here. Or had I been mistaken? "Honey, what's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything?" Her voice came through the phone. "Okay, I'll be right there." I hung up and shook my head with a bitter smile. I must have been hallucinating, I thought. After all, many people look similar from behind. It was already 8 p.m. when we arrived at the cinema. The movie hadn't started yet, and the theater was still relatively empty, so we picked the best seats right in the middle. Just like always, she leaned her head on my shoulder, munching on popcorn. About 10 minutes later, the movie began, and people started trickling in. One of them passed in front of me and he looked vaguely familiar, like I'd seen him somewhere before. When he sat down next to Evelyn, it suddenly clicked. He was a man I'd seen at Cedar Creek Hospital. Was this a coincidence? I doubted it. My heart began to race, but I deliberately fixed my gaze on the movie screen, pretending to be engrossed, all while secretly watching Evelyn and the man's reactions. I figured a night would reveal whether Evelyn was actually cheating on me. Sure enough, I noticed that as the man sat down beside her, Evelyn shot him a warning glance. My heart instantly turned cold. Of course, a single glance didn't prove anything. If they truly were involved, there would definitely be more to come. And indeed, barely 10 minutes into the movie when everyone's attention was glued to the screen, the man made his move. I saw him reach out and wrap his arm around Evelyn's waist. Evelyn, startled, pushed his hand away and then looked at me guilty. Even though my eyes were fixed on the screen, I was watching their every move out of the corner of my eye. If that man had no connection to Evelyn, knowing her personality, she would have flown into a rage if he dared to touch her waist like that. As for me, I'd already clenched my fists. If Evelyn had shown any anger, I would have immediately jumped up and beaten the hell out of that damn bastard. However, Evelyn's reaction was a stab to my heart. After removing his hand, she saw me staring at the screen, seemingly oblivious to their little exchange. Only then did she slowly turn her head and through gritted teeth shoot him another warning glare. Her reaction sent my mind into a spin. It felt like 1,000 ants were gnawing in my heart and a bitter taste spread in my throat. I fought to control my emotions. I wanted to see just how far they would go right in front of me. The next moment, their actions plunged me into despair. I watched as the man's actions became increasingly bold, and Evelyn's eyes grew more frantic, constantly darting towards me to check my reaction. If it had ended there, perhaps I could have let it slide. But then the man suddenly reached out and grabbed Evelyn's hand. In that instant, rage surged within me, threatening to erupt at any moment. If Evelyn had uttered a single word of protest, I swear that man would have ended up in the hospital for at least half a month, if not longer. I was very confident about that. Although I'm a teacher, I train in boxing in my spare time. But alas, Evelyn extinguished the last flicker of hope I had for her, making me give up on her completely. He took Evelyn's hand, gently pulled it towards him, and then brought it to his lips, kissing it with relish. Throughout this, Evelyn offered no resistance. Her hand only trembled slightly, and her eyes watching me grew even more panicked. Evelyn's reaction chilled me to the bone. I had no more patience to watch their charade and my expression turned icy. Evelyn might have noticed the change in my expression. Flustered, she pulled her hand back, stood up, and said, "Honey, I'm going to the restroom." Expressionless, I replied, "Okay." Perhaps it was the dim lighting. But as she left, she didn't seem to notice the coldness and disgust on my face. About a minute after Evelyn left, the man also got up. As he passed me, he gave me a knowing, provocative smile. After he'd walked some distance, I stood up and followed him. I wanted to see if she was heartless enough to ditch me here and go meet him somewhere else privately. The man didn't go to the restroom. Instead, he headed to a VIP private room. Clearly, they had already arranged it. Like some voyeuristic clown, I followed from a distance. Inside the private room, when Evelyn saw the man enter, her face turned cold. She strode forward, slapped him across the face, and hissed, "You've got some nerve. Are you looking to die?" The man, unfazed by the stinging pain on his cheek, pulled her into an embrace and said coaxingly, "I'm sorry. I just missed you too much." I rushed to the door of the private room in a few strides. Just then, I heard Evelyn's voice again. "No, I can't keep him waiting too long. Don't worry, he's probably completely engrossed in the movie right now." I bit down hard, tasting the metallic tang of blood on my lips. My hands, already clenched into fists, were rigid with bulging veins. I fought the urge to kick down the door of the private room and catch them in the act. In the end, I restrained myself. After all, we had truly loved each other once and shared a bond from childhood. Besides, she wasn't forced. She was doing this willingly. If I barged in, how could she face the humiliation? Would she be so ashamed she might even kill herself? It's true. I hated her for her betrayal, but I never wanted her dead. In the end, I sighed in despair, a silent lament in my heart. So be it. Since you're willing, why should I tear you apart? I just need to disappear from her world silently. I don't know how I managed to walk out of the movie theater. The once vibrant streets instantly lost their color in my eyes, turning a dull, lifeless gray. I stood on the sidewalk like a soulless husk, my eyes vacant as I watched the traffic pass by. Evelyn's beautiful smiling face kept flashing in my mind, only to shatter into pieces again and again. Passers-by kept glancing at me strangely, whispering amongst themselves. It was as if the men she was cheating with stood in the shadows behind me, sneering triumphantly, "You're just a coward. You didn't even dare to catch them in the act. You deserve to be cuckolded by me." I don't know how much time passed before Evelyn found me. She gently hugged me from behind, resting her head on my back, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "Honey, when did you come out? I called you, but you didn't answer. You scared me to death, you know." I gently pried her hands off me and walked toward the parking lot without a word. I could feel her body tremble slightly as I removed her hands. Sensing my rejection, she hurried in front of me, panic in her eyes, and stared at my lifeless face. Her voice choked with tears. She reached out to wipe the dried tear tracks from my face. "Honey, why are you crying? Did I do something to make you angry?" I moved her hand away. "No, I'm just feeling a bit melancholic." "Melancholic about what?" Evelyn asked, alarmed. I shook my head. "I can't remember. I'll tell you when I do." On the way back, she kept trying to make conversation, attempting to find out why I had suddenly fallen silent. I knew what she was up to, but I was in no mood to listen to her insincere words. All I could think about was how to leave her world. Death was the most direct way, but I had already died for her once. I didn't want to go through that again. However, she was rich and powerful. As long as I was in the country, she could find me if she wanted to. I figured apart from faking my own death, there was probably no other way out. Just as I was contemplating how to fake my death, her phone suddenly rang and she had left it where I could see it. The caller ID showed no name, but it made her visibly flustered. "You should answer it." "It might be urgent," I said, then turned my head to look out the window. She didn't answer. Immediately declined the call and then turned off her phone. "I don't usually answer calls when I'm driving." "Except yours," she said. "Doesn't usually answer calls except mine," she says. Her ability to lie so brazenly without batting an eye truly amazed me. She was clearly afraid I'd uncover her secret. Yet, she spun such a tale to feign affection. How had I never noticed this talent of hers before? I didn't call her out, nor did I say anything. I didn't want to speak. She opened her mouth, about to make another excuse, but seeing my eyes were closed, she could only focus on driving. Back home, I wordlessly went into the bathroom, turned on the tap, and let the water pour over my head. The rush of frigid water didn't impede my hearing. Not long after it started, I heard the front door open. I knew she'd gone outside to return that call from the unsaved number. If I hadn't seen her cheating with my own eyes at the movie theater, I probably would have snuck out right then to see who on earth she was calling. But now, knowing the answer, why torture myself further? I came out of the bathroom and went straight to the bedroom. Just as I lay down, she returned, call finished. She hugged me gently from behind, her face pressed against the back of my head. I desperately wanted to break free from her hypocritical embrace. But to disappear from her life without a ripple, to not arouse her suspicion, I had to endure it. Evelyn, tomorrow I want to go inspect the branch offices. I might be away from you for a while. Is that okay? Me. All right, I understand. My tone was the same as always, just with less emotion, a shade more detached. She seemed to sense the change in me and asked tentatively, "Honey, what's been wrong with you these past couple of days? I feel like you're a different person." Have I? I was surprised by her sixth sense. Not wanting to make her suspicious, I turned and pulled her into an embrace. Maybe I've just been overworked lately, feeling a bit stressed and down. Evelyn sighed. It's all my fault. I haven't been taking good care of you. But don't worry, I'll try my best to be back by your birthday. Her reminder made me realize that my 20th birthday was just over 20 days away. I sighed inwardly. Fine, then let me disappear from her world before that day comes. Just then, she suddenly kissed my lips. I recoiled as if I'd been electrocuted, pushing her away instantly, unthinking. She stared at me in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. I'd never rejected her before. This was the first time. My reaction had clearly made her suspicious. To dispel her doubts, I reluctantly pulled her back into my arms. I'm just a little tired. She shook her head. No, I need to be sure you're not angry. Only then can I leave with peace of mind tomorrow. Her words brought back the image of her with that man at the movie theater, their clandestine affair. I looked at her face, really looked, the same face, but her heart had changed. Suddenly, tears streamed from her eyes, tracing paths down her cheeks. In that moment, I admit my resolve wavered. The next morning, I walked her downstairs as usual. As we were about to part, she suddenly blushed and whispered in my ear, "Wait for me at home." And I was very satisfied last night. With that, she kissed my forehead and as I watched, drove off in her Maybach vanishing down the road. I couldn't help but feel a pang of loss, a dull ache in my heart. I remembered how I used to be. Always so tender with her, so careful, terrified of accidentally causing her the slightest pain. Last night, I'd unleashed all my pent-up frustration from the past 2 days on her. Yet today, she told me she was very satisfied. I thought I knew her. It seems I was just fooling myself, but none of that matters anymore. I'll just let this be our final moment of tenderness. I drove to an agency and went straight to see the boss. After hearing about the services I needed, he was both shocked and delighted. Shocked because neither he nor his team had ever handled such a request. No, scratch that. He'd never even heard of such a service. The boss knew full well this kind of business wasn't just skirting the law. It was outright criminal. Delighted because although the risk was extremely high, the pay was exceptionally good. This one job for me would cover his company's net profit for several years. You have to understand his agency normally just helped people obtain and rent out licenses and qualifications. Making a net profit of $400,000 or $500,000 a year was already good for them, but my offer was $2 million. Money makes the mayor go. Truer words were never spoken. Although my request leaned towards the criminal, the boss couldn't resist the temptation and finally agreed. When we signed the contract, the boss asked, "Mr. Julian, are you absolutely sure about this? Once your original identity is erased, Julian will cease to exist. There will only be Julian." I nodded and signed my name. Afterward, I took the boss to the bank and withdrew a $500,000 deposit for him. The rest would be paid upon completion. The reason I didn't opt for a mobile transfer was that I was afraid Evelyn might trace it back to this agency after I disappeared. If that happened, my fake death would be all for nothing. Since I decided to vanish from her world, I had to make sure I was untraceable. Next, I went to the school and submitted my resignation letter, then went to get divorce papers drawn up. It was already afternoon by the time I got home. Looking at the wedding photo of Evelyn and me in the bedroom, sharp pangs of pain shot through my heart. She wasn't just my wife. She was also my childhood sweetheart, the one I grew up with and my only family in this world. If she hadn't chosen to cheat, I could have forgiven and tolerated anything else. Just as she'd said, if it had only been a one-time affair, even though it would have torn me up inside, I would have forgiven her if she'd come back to me. Unfortunately, she didn't. Her actions with that man in the movie theater right in front of me made me give up on her completely. Perhaps the deeper the love, the deeper the hate. I deliberately saved the video of her and that man having sex in a car at Willow Park. Although I didn't want her dead, I wanted her to live with guilt for the rest of her life. I wouldn't be receiving the birthday gift she sent me this year, but I hope she would like the gift I was leaving for her. Maybe she'd be filled with regret. Maybe I meant nothing to her. Maybe I was just a passerby in her life. With bloodshot eyes, I took down our wedding photo from the wall, carefully cut out my portion with scissors, leaving only hers, and then hung it back up. Then I went to the safe we shared. There were no valuables in it, only our marriage certificate and household registration book. I squatted down, entered the password, and took them out. Again, I used the scissors to cut out my part from both documents. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face without me even realizing it. If I'd had any other choice, who would willingly do something like that? To hurt the enemy 1,000-fold, wounds oneself 800-fold. My heart ached so much it was hard to breathe. I lay flat on the bed and tried to start healing myself. Just then, a notification popped up on my phone. Someone was adding me on WeChat. The verification message read, "Are you Evelyn's husband?" I froze. I had a pretty good idea who it was. I accepted his friend request. I wanted to see what he wanted by adding me. He seemed incredibly impatient. Less than a minute after I accepted his request, he sent a picture. Evelyn asleep in bed. From the picture, Evelyn was clearly tired, asleep in his arms. I had thought I was completely over Evelyn, that nothing she did could hurt me anymore. But I was wrong. Seeing her lying in another man's arms, something deep inside me shattered into pieces, and the turmoil wouldn't subside for a long, long time. I had suspected her so-called trip to inspect the branch office was just an excuse to meet that man. And now, the truth was exactly as I guessed. But when the truth was laid bare before me, I still couldn't take it. I closed my eyes in pain and took a deep breath. When I opened them again, I saved the photos. These would be the last gifts I ever gave to Evelyn. What I didn't expect was just how bold that man could be. He had the audacity to provoke me openly, the rightful husband. I knew exactly why he sent those photos. What I didn't understand was where his confidence came from. This blind belief that he was the winner. I wondered when Evelyn sees the photos he sent me and mistakenly thinks they led to my death, will he still feel so smug? I could imagine her flying into a rage, blaming him entirely for my end. Evelyn isn't someone to mess with. I've seen what she's capable of. I wouldn't be surprised if when that time comes, he ends up paying a heavy price. If things get serious, these photos could very well be the end of him. I put away my phone and began packing my clothes. Some were things I bought myself. Others were gifts from Evelyn. When I finished, I realized everything I bought fit neatly into a single suitcase. But the things she gave me, even a few suitcases weren't enough. Heartbroken, I carried all the clothes she bought me up to the rooftop and burned them one piece at a time. I burned the wedding photos I had cut out, the photo from the household registration book, the copy of our marriage certificate, everything that tied me to her. I turned it all to ash. When Evelyn comes back, I don't want her to see a single trace of me, not even a gift she once gave. After finishing, I returned to bed and lay there thinking, now all that's left is to wait for the news. The call from the agency boss never came, but Evelyn's call did. She was traveling. Normally, she never called this late, but every night she used to send a video call so we could miss each other together. This time, it was just a voice call. When I answered, I heard her tired voice. "Hubby, did you miss me?" The moment I heard her, the image of her sleeping naked in another man's arms flashed through my mind. It stabbed me to my core. She asked if I missed her, as if that were up to me. Every time I close my eyes, I see her wrapped up with him. Even when I try not to think about it, the images force their way back in. I clench my fists, forcing my voice to stay gentle. Of course, I missed you. How could I not? She said, I don't know what's wrong tonight. I just feel a little unsettled. Everything okay at home? I looked at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall, just her in the frame now. Don't worry, I'm fine. Eating well, sleeping well. She sighed. I'm sorry, hubby. After this trip, I'll try to spend more time at home. I've got something to take care of now, so I'm hanging up. After she ended the call, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Rage surged through me as I smashed my phone against the bed. My mouth twitched uncontrollably, and once again, tears streamed down my face. As a man, I had lost every shred of dignity. For the next few days, I met up with my friends for drinks every day. After all, once I faked my death and left, seeing them again would be difficult. My friends all joked that I'd had a complete change of personality. They all knew that in the past, getting me to go out for drinks with them was a real challenge. These days, with me actively asking them out for drinks, they all felt like the sun had risen in the west. You have to understand, in their eyes, I'd long been labeled as henpecked. And I couldn't blame them because Evelyn didn't like the smell of alcohol on me. I cared about Evelyn's feelings. So it really was difficult for them to get me to drink unless it was absolutely unavoidable. Amidst my sudden change in personality, only Leo among them sensed something was off. Once he discreetly asked me, Julian, did you have a fight with Evelyn? I didn't answer, just kept urging him to drink. But somehow an inexplicable sadness seeped into my words and demeanor. During these days of drinking with them, Evelyn would call me as usual, just like always. And I played along perfectly, maintaining my usual tone and showing her every consideration. It was just that the men, besides sending photos of Evelyn sleeping in bed every day, also sent a few audio recordings. My heart, initially in turmoil, gradually became numb. Until the 15th day, the boss of the agency told me everything was ready. They were just waiting for me to pay the final installment to implement my fake death plan. Only then did my heart feel a sense of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. I thought finally I wouldn't have to wear a false mask and engage in insincere conversations with Evelyn. I went to the agency as agreed and received my new identity. The name Julian was also cancelled at that very moment. From now on, there would be no Julian in this world, only the new identity. I just needed to complete the final step and then I would make Evelyn believe that I had completely left her, vanished from her world. After buying a plane ticket to North Highland Mountain City for that evening using my new ID, I drove to the bank and withdrew $5 million in cash. Most of this money was living expenses Evelyn had the finance department transfer to my salary account. A very small portion was my actual salary. With the money withdrawn, the salary account of course had to be closed. Afterward, I met the head of the agency, and we drove to the destination for the final phase of the plan, a winding mountain road. I had no idea where he'd found the body double, but the man's build bore a striking resemblance to mine. As he heaved the body into the driver's seat of my car, I saw his hands wouldn't stop shaking. It didn't impede his actions, though. He then pulled a canister of gasoline, already prepared, from the trunk of his car and doused the interior of mine. Once it was lit, we pushed the car over the cliff together. With that done, I rode back with him. The entire journey, however, his face was deathly pale and his body trembled uncontrollably. I even began to wonder if he murdered the body double himself. Why else would he be so terrified? Back home, I placed my phone in the safe, cast one last lingering look at the love nest I had once shared with her, and then headed straight for the airport without a backward glance. As for my new identity, no one knew except the agency head. I wasn't worried about him exposing me. Doing so would do him more harm than good. The moment I stepped onto the plane, a profound sense of relief finally washed over my mind and body. From now on, I thought Evelyn and I would be worlds apart, destined never to meet again for the rest of our lives. Meanwhile, in a private room of a high-end hotel in the city, Evelyn suddenly felt a sharp pain in her chest and shoved away the men embracing her. The man's name was Victor, a junior manager at a subsidiary of the Sterling Group. He had only caught Evelyn's eye because she'd accidentally discovered that, like me, he possessed the rare Rh-negative blood type, what some called panda blood. But as time went on, he deluded himself into thinking he'd conquered Evelyn and began to entertain presumptuous notions. Evelyn's reaction today caught him off guard. Ever since they'd become intimate, this was the first time she had ever rejected him. Unwilling to accept it, he prepared to step forward and finish what they'd started. However, he suddenly noticed that Evelyn's gaze had turned icy, long devoid of its previous tenderness. He had no choice but to stop, forcing a smile as he looked at her. "Get dressed. Take me to the hospital," Evelyn commanded without even a glance at him. She quickly dressed and walked out. Victor stood there stunned for a good while before he finally started to put on his clothes. Cedar Creek Hospital. Evelyn clutched a pregnancy test, tears streaming down her face as she muttered to herself, "I've achieved my goal. I should be happy. So why is there this strange sadness?" Evelyn wiped the tears from her face, then shredded the test and threw it into the trash can. Then she walked out of the hospital. Victor, driving her Maybach, pulled up right in front of her almost immediately. Evelyn glanced at him, walked to the passenger side, opened the door, and got in without a word. Victor offered what he considered a gentlemanly smile and reached out to stroke her hair. But unexpectedly, Evelyn turned to him, her expression icy, and stared him down. "Victor," she said. "As of now, we're through with that." Evelyn, her face a mask of frost, slapped his outstretched hand away. Victor's expression turned exceedingly grim. What? He didn't know what he'd done wrong to make Evelyn suddenly turn on him like this today. Evelyn sneered. "This was just an act between us. Why so many whys? But don't worry, I'll give you a sum of money and then we'll never see each other again." Victor shrugged and asked, "Can you stay with me for a few more days?" "No, I have this strange unease in my heart. I need to go back and see if he's okay." At this, Evelyn took a card from her bag and looked at him. "There are 5 million on this card. Don't ever appear before me again." With that, Evelyn tossed the card to him and gestured for him to get out of the car. Seeing Evelyn wasn't joking, a complex mix of unwillingness, jealousy, and other emotions flashed in Victor's eyes. He knew Evelyn's status very well. 5 million was hardly his goal. He wanted her heart. As long as her heart was his, or if he became a man in every sense of the word, wouldn't Evelyn's money be his money? But now, Evelyn was shattering his hopes. How could he be reconciled to that? So, he handed the card back, feigning deep affection, and said, "I love you, too." Am I really no match for him? Smack. Evelyn slapped him across the face. Her expression glacial. She said, "Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to my husband? Get rid of your petty schemes. I will only ever have one husband, and that's Julian." Victor wanted to say more. But Evelyn's frigid voice cut in again. "If you don't get out of this car right now, you can forget about the 5 million, too." Victor touched his stinging cheek, reluctantly took the card, and got out of the car, his heart filled with resentment. He hadn't expected Evelyn to turn on him so quickly and without any warning. After Evelyn drove off, he took out his phone. He opened my WeChat account and looked at the pictures and voice recordings he had sent me. A smile spread across his face. "Evelyn," he mused, "you'll never escape my grasp." Driving, Evelyn felt an increasing panic in her heart, a sense that something terrible was about to happen. She took out her phone and while driving, dialed my number. But all she heard was a mechanical voice. "Hello, the number you have dialed is switched off." Evelyn panicked instantly. The ominous premonition in her heart grew stronger. In all these years, my phone had never been switched off. She knew this very well. She hardly drove to the airport, she felt driving was too slow. A plane would be much faster. Arriving at the ticket counter, she hastily bought an urgent flight ticket. She had to get home as soon as possible to see if something had happened to me. Just as she got her plane ticket, a call came in from a number identified as the traffic police. She answered, pushing down her rising panic. "Hello, is this Ms. Evelyn?" "Yes, this is she." "What is it?" "Ah, it's like this. There's been a car accident on the highway. A car went off a cliff. The owner's name is Julian. Do you know him? Evelyn felt her vision go black and she nearly collapsed. Leaning against the wall for support, she struggled to remain calm and asked, "Are you sure you haven't made a mistake?" She knew the highway. It was nothing but cliffs and winding roads. Driving there was indeed dangerous, but she couldn't believe I would go there, nor could she think of any reason for me to. The highway was 50 kilometers from the home she and I once shared. She thought I'd only go there if I had nothing better to do. "Miss Evelyn, we've confirmed it. The deceased driver is indeed Julian." Hearing this, Evelyn's face turned deathly pale and tears burst forth. She roared into the phone. "I don't believe you. You're lying to me." With that, she hung up, her whole body trembling as she leaned against the wall. The traffic police called again, but she didn't even look at the screen before rejecting the call. Shaking uncontrollably, she mumbled to herself, "No, it can't be. They must be lying to me." The express flight was still an hour away and Evelyn felt that hour pass excruciatingly slowly. Finally, trembling, she boarded the plane. After disembarking, she didn't go to the traffic police department first. Instead, she immediately got into the car that was already waiting and rushed home desperately. All the while, she prayed silently that the traffic police had simply made a mistake, called the wrong person, and that I was still at home, safe and sound, waiting for her. Once home, she quickly threw open the front door. Stepping inside, frantic with anxiety, she began to shout my name. But apart from the empty, luxurious villa, my figure was long gone, let alone the sound of my voice in response. Evelyn's heart pounded with panic, and she felt like something was missing from the house. She scanned the living room, her gaze suddenly freezing on the spot where the wall clock should have been. The clock was gone. To others, it was just an ordinary wall clock. But for her, the clock's presence in the house meant home was still whole. She didn't believe a thief had broken in and stolen the clock. Only I could have taken it. The clock represented a promise between us. My taking it meant one of us had broken that promise. Evelyn trembled all over. Her gaze shifted to the shoe cabinet, and she could no longer hold back her heart-wrenching sobs. Only her shoes remained in the cabinet. All of mine were gone. Not even a single slipper left behind. Like a woman unhinged, Evelyn dashed into the bedroom, her eyes immediately falling on the wedding photo on the bedside table. The photo was mutilated. Only her portion remained while my part had also vanished. A desolate chill swept over Evelyn. She didn't know what she had done wrong for me to punish her like this. Evelyn collapsed onto the bed, biting her lip hard, trying to force herself to calm down. Suddenly, she remembered that night at the cinema. After her deep exchange with Victor, she had returned to find me gone. At the time, frantic, she had called my phone. It rang, but no one answered. She had rushed out of the cinema, only to find me on the street outside with tear tracks on my face. She had thought their exchange was brief, that she had returned quickly enough, and that I wouldn't suspect anything. But the more she thought about it now, the more uneasy she felt. Could it be? Did he secretly follow me that night and find out about Victor and me? No, no, no. Impossible. Evelyn, pale-faced, muttered, dismissing the thought. She knew very well that no normal man could tolerate his woman cheating on him. Similarly, she couldn't bear her beloved husband cheating on her with another woman. It was just that she couldn't be certain whether I had followed her that night. In the end, she dismissed the idea. She reasoned that if I had indeed followed her and discovered her sordid affair with Victor, I would have caught them in the act immediately, or at least confronted her, starting a huge fight afterward. She felt that in such matters, I would have to be less than a man to tolerate it. Suddenly, an even more terrifying thought struck her. Trembling and stumbling, she made her way to the safe. With shaking hands, she slowly opened it. Inside, besides a household registration book and a marriage certificate, were two more items. Divorce papers and my mobile phone. Although she had somewhat anticipated it, seeing the divorce papers I had left for her still made Evelyn's chest ache so much she could hardly breathe. Didn't she love me? She could tell the whole world that she loved me, that she would do anything for me. It was just that at some point this love had lost its way, slipped from her control, suppressing the pain in her heart. Evelyn took out the phone and the divorce papers. She knew I wouldn't have put my phone in the safe for no reason. Since it was there, it must hold a deeper meaning. Evelyn took out the phone from the safe and found it was dead. She hurriedly grabbed a charger from her bag and plugged it in. As she inserted the cable, she noticed a bank card tucked inside the phone case. She pulled it out and immediately recognized it. It was the card she had given me on our wedding day. It didn't hold much, but the amount carried a message: "I love you for a lifetime." Evelyn was devastated. She believed that if I had taken a card with me, it meant I was safe. But the fact that it was left untouched meant I had already accepted death. As for the divorce agreement, she barely glanced at it. If I were still alive, she would never agree to a divorce, no matter the cost. Because to her, I wasn't just her lover. I was her only family. But if I was already gone, the divorce agreement meant nothing. In her heart, it was only widowhood, not divorce. Barely 10 minutes after plugging in the charger, she impatiently turned on the phone, eager to see what I had left behind. She opened WeChat and her eyes immediately narrowed. She recognized Victor's profile at a glance. Damn it. Evelyn's face twisted with rage, her eyes brimming with murderous intent. She finally understood why I left her. The problem was right here. She had thought she'd covered her tracks well. Aside from that time at the movie theater, she believed I hadn't discovered anything. But she had underestimated Victor's greed. He never intended to be just a fling. He wanted to take my place as her husband. She opened Victor's chat. It was filled with pictures of her in his arms. She couldn't help but imagine the moment I saw those photos. The torment, the heartbreak that gnawed at me day after day until I could no longer bear it and chose to drive off a cliff to end it all. She knew that if our roles were reversed, she wouldn't have survived either. At best, she'd self-harm. At worst, she might truly choose death. After all, who could endure endless betrayal from the one they loved most? Tears streamed down Evelyn's face as she gritted her teeth. "Victor, I'm going to make you pay." She continued scrolling down, determined to uncover anything else she didn't know. Eventually, she came across a video from Leo, a clip of her and Victor together in a car by the roadside at Willow Park. Her eyes widened in shock. A deep sense of guilt surged through her. She finally realized I had given her a chance to turn back. She just hadn't known it. She gently touched her belly and whispered, "I'm sorry, my love. I only did this to fulfill your dream of becoming a father. I never meant to hurt you." Wiping away her tears, Evelyn told herself to stay strong. She knew I wouldn't want to see her fall apart like this. She touched her belly again, eyes full of sorrow. "Baby, let's go bring your father home." The child growing inside her was Victor's, already over a month along, but she would never let the child recognize him as the father. The only father in that child's life would be Julian. As for Victor, she had never intended to kill him, but now his arrogance had cost me my life. And so her heart turned cold. In her eyes, Victor was already a dead man. With her vast fortune, eliminating a nobody like him would be easy. There were countless ways. With hatred burning in her eyes, Evelyn stood and headed downstairs. Once in a car, she picked up her phone and called the head of security at her company. "I don't ever want to see Victor again." She hung up immediately. The security chief understood instantly. He knew exactly who Victor was. A mid-level manager at a branch office with a gambling problem and mountains of debt. Without their boss, Victor was just another white-collar addict in a suit. At the police department, Evelyn, her face pale, walked in, led by a staff member. She arrived at the funeral home. In the morgue, a staff member pointed to a figure covered with a white sheet. "Miss Evelyn, please confirm if this is your husband." Tears streamed down her face as Evelyn nodded. She reached out a trembling hand and carefully pulled back the white sheet. Beneath it lay a body burned beyond recognition, impossible to identify. However, the build was undoubtedly mine. When she saw the watch on the corpse's hand, her last shred of hope was shattered. She had to admit this body was mine. That watch was a wedding gift from her. I never took it off except when I slept. She despaired. Her heart-wrenching sobs went on and on. Her agonizing cries even brought tears to the eyes of the staff. Such a loving couple. What a pity. A staff member handed her a tissue. "Miss Evelyn, please accept our condolences. If you confirmed, please sign the death certificate." No, no. Evelyn shook her head in anguish, crying. I still don't believe you would leave me. Sigh. The staff member sighed and handed her the autopsy report. Evelyn took the report with trembling hands, then froze on the spot as if struck by lightning. What's wrong, Miss Evelyn? Is there a problem with the report? The staff member quickly asked upon seeing her reaction. Evelyn stopped crying, pointing at the report in her hand. She looked at the staff member. Are you sure the deceased is O negative blood? The staff member replied, yes, this is to facilitate identification by the family. Is there an issue? Receiving the affirmative reply, Evelyn smiled just as the staff member thought she had gone mad. Evelyn shook her head and said, you've made a mistake. This man isn't my husband. My husband has Rh negative blood. Before the staff member could process her words, she turned and left. Now, she had only one thought in her mind, to find me. As for whether I could forgive her, she didn't dare to consider it. She knew very well that her actions had crossed my bottom line. Reconciliation would be incredibly difficult, but she felt that even if I couldn't forgive her, she had to get me back by her side. I am hers in life and in death. This was her obsession with me. After getting into her car, Evelyn dialed Leo's number. What is it? Leo's unfriendly tone from the start made her face burn. Previously, Leo would always address her respectfully as sister-in-law, never speaking to her like this. At the same time, she sensed from Leo's tone that I might have told him about her affair. After all, besides her, my wife, Leo was the only brother I had grown up with. Evelyn didn't get angry, just asked with a flushed face. Leo, you know where Julian went, don't you? I don't know. After saying that, Leo angrily hung up the phone. In fact, Leo really didn't know where I'd gone, he only knew I hadn't contacted her for days. As for Evelyn's affair, Leo only found out just before I left. It was after I got completely drunk and, emboldened by the alcohol, vented the grievances pinned up in my heart. As for what I specifically said, I myself am not clear. I only know that Leo was the one who took me home. Evelyn knew she was in the wrong, so she didn't get angry. She called everyone I might know. As a result, no one knew where I had gone. Helplessly, she dialed Leo's number again. She felt that Leo should have some clue about me. However, she made several consecutive calls, all of which Leo hung up. She seethed. She knew very well that Leo was my best friend. If she had a choice, she wouldn't want to fall out with him. But to find me, she gritted her teeth and sent Leo a threatening message. If you don't tell me where Julian is, I'll make your company go bankrupt instantly. After sending the message, her hand trembled slightly. She only wanted news of me. She couldn't care about anything else. She believed Leo wouldn't dare to gamble. Leo's company was just a small firm and he had elderly parents and young children to support, all relying on this small company for their livelihood. If the company went bankrupt, it would be a price Leo couldn't afford to pay. And indeed, it was so. In less than 5 minutes, Leo, left with no choice, compromised and sent back a message. I really don't know where Julian went. He drank too much that day and let it slip. That's how I found out you cheated. After seeing Leo's reply, Evelyn powerlessly put down her phone. She believed Leo wouldn't dare lie to her. Since he said he didn't know, he definitely didn't know. Evelyn pondered for a moment, then called the school where I used to work. After getting my usual salary account number, she transferred 10 million into it. She thought that as long as I used the money in that account, she could find out which city I was in. However, not long after the transfer, a bank employee called her back. Hello, Ms. Evelyn. The account you transferred money to was closed several days ago. Closed? Evelyn exclaimed, hardly believing her ears. He even closed the account. How will he get by? Evelyn's mind was instantly thrown into turmoil. She didn't know what to do. She felt that I could be angry and avoid her, but she had to ensure I was financially secure. Evelyn drove home. The house once filled with my constant presence, my figure and echo in its rooms, now held only her. The warmth of yesteryear was gone and a chilling desolation washed over her. I just wanted our family to be whole. Was I really so wrong? Tears streamed down Evelyn's face as she scanned the rooms, searching for anything I might have left behind. To her despair, not a single one of my belongings remained. Not even a stray strand of hair. She sat alone on the sofa for a long, long time, like a soulless husk. Suddenly, she shot up from the sofa, her eyes blazing with a steely resolve. "Hubby, I will find you. You're mine forever. Unless I die." With that, she dialed Victor's number. The moment the call connected, Victor's flippant, teasing voice came through. "What's wrong, baby? Miss me already?" Evelyn's face was glacial. She swiftly hid the murderous glint in her eyes. Yet, her voice remained eerily calm. "Go to the airport, get my car, and bring it back. I'll be waiting at home." All right, baby. You just wait for me." Listening to Victor's elated voice on the other end, a sneer curled Evelyn's lips. Victor, ecstatic, rushed to the airport, keys in hand. He sped towards the city at 150 kilometers per hour, humming a little tune. His mind conjured images of my pathetic retreat, a stark contrast to his own envisioned grand entrance into the limelight. He, Victor, would henceforth be Evelyn's man with inexhaustible spending money and an endless parade of women. Lost in these daydreams, he unknowingly crossed into the district. Suddenly, a large truck ahead veered out of control, instantly slamming into his car. Victor felt the world spin, his vision rapidly blackening as sensation fled his body. He couldn't accept dying like this. An immense fortune, practically within his grasp, awaited his enjoyment. He fought to lift his head, desperate to see who had snatched away his colossal prize. Through blurring vision, he saw a thuggish-looking driver with a fleshy face staring at him, a sneer playing on his lips, even as he reported the incident. "Hello, is this 110? My truck was in an accident on the highway." The driver's mocking smile made everything click into place. This was no accident. They deliberately hit him, intending to kill him. He had no such enemies. It had to be an orchestrated hit, and the mastermind could only be Evelyn. Regret flooded him. He regretted provoking me. Regretted it so deeply, for it brought this fatal calamity upon him. If only time could turn back, he would never have entertained those petty schemes. All he'd wanted was to make some extra money, then get far, far away from that demon, Evelyn. But alas, it was too late. Time could not be rewound and life offered no second chances. North Border Highland City, the University District. After I got here, I took over a quiet little bar across from the campus. It wasn't much, just over 100 square meters, but the peaceful atmosphere and the soft, comforting music made me fall for the place. The previous owner had grumbled it was too small with no real profit margin. But for me, alone and without any baggage, it was enough to get by. Winters melted into springs, and just like that, 5 years had passed. Perhaps it was a classic case of unlucky in love, lucky in business. Since I took over, the bar had thrived. During peak season, my net profit would top 50 or 60,000. And even in the off-season, I'd still pull in 5 or 6,000. In those 5 years, Evelyn's image had gradually blurred in my mind. I was even starting to forget what she looked like. I have to admit, forgetting someone you love to the core of your being is incredibly difficult. It felt like being reforged in a furnace. An agony so intense it made life unbearable. Every time Evelyn's image surfaced, I'd clench my teeth and imagine a blade striking me, desperately trying to force her from my thoughts. Each time she came to mind, I'd conjure that blade to metaphorically strike myself down. Yet, the more I did this, the harder she was to forget. I knew, of course, that the easiest way to truly forget her would be for someone else to enter my life. But her betrayal had shattered my faith in love. That is until 3 years ago, when a customer with the WeChat name Lovesick appeared. She was a mystery. I'd never seen her in person. Yet, every single day for 3 years, without missing one, she'd have someone pick up a cocktail I'd mixed for her. Over time, though we'd never met face to face, we became friends who could talk about anything. One day, she suddenly said she wanted to hear my story. Perhaps I'd been bottling things up for too long and needed an outlet. As if guided by some unseen force, I began to tell her everything. I believed I had forcibly suppressed the past, that my heart wouldn't stir. However, I had underestimated the depth of the wounds Evelyn had inflicted. By the time I finished my story, I felt utterly exposed and wounded, body and soul all over again. After listening to my story about Evelyn, she shared hers. She said she once had a husband who cherished her more than his own life, but she'd carelessly lost him. She said she loved her husband profoundly, more than she loved herself. But fate, it seemed, had played a cruel joke on them. Years of marriage, yet no children. Seeing the endless yearning in her husband's eyes whenever he looked at other people's children pained her deeply, so she resolved to fulfill his dream of fatherhood, no matter the cost. Thus, she chose to secretly have an affair with another man. Her sole purpose was to conceive. She planned to return to her normal life immediately after getting pregnant. But, as they say, you can't wrap fire in paper. The truth eventually came out. Her husband discovered it and left her forever. After finishing her story, she asked me, "If you were my husband, would you forgive me?" To be honest, her story moved me deeply. I found myself wondering if Evelyn's affair had been like hers, simply a desperate desire for a child. But I quickly dismissed the thought. Firstly, I was a healthy man. If she'd wanted a child, I would have wholeheartedly supported her. The reason we didn't have children was that Evelyn hadn't wanted them. Her excuse was, "I'm not ready to be a mother yet." I loved her, and though I desperately wanted a child of our love, I suppressed my true feelings and respected her wishes. I believe Evelyn's infidelity had nothing to do with wanting children. Evelyn had simply come into money and, like some people, decided she could have her affairs on the side while keeping her marriage secure. I couldn't answer the question. I wasn't her husband. Even hypothetically, I didn't want to touch such a raw nerve. As a man, I couldn't accept or understand her actions. Even if physical limitations prevent conception, there are many ways to address that sorrow. Adoption, for instance, or trying IVF, but to resort to an affair to conceive with another man. I felt that even if the initial intention was to make their love more complete, such love had already veered off course. It was no longer the beautiful thing it had once been, and a parting of ways was inevitable. Though I didn't answer her question out loud, my silence was its own reply. Since that time, we never spoke of anything deep again, just the usual everyday chatter. Over the past 3 years, thanks to her, I gradually emerged from the shadow that Evelyn left behind. Tonight was no different. After seeing off the last customer, I lay down on my bed, pulled out my phone, and opened WeChat. She always sent me a message around this time. But tonight, even after waiting more than an hour, nothing came. The next few days were the same. No messages. I started to worry without even knowing why. Could something have happened to her? I couldn't hold back anymore and sent her a message. "Are you there?" This was the first time since Evelyn's betrayal that I'd taken the initiative to message another woman. I waited half an hour. Just as I was about to go to sleep, she finally replied with a message that completely threw me off balance. "Our daughter just turned 4 this year. She's been crying to see her dad every day lately. Can you help me? Just stay with her for a few days." I froze. If she were truly my child, I'd be more than willing to stay with her every single day. The problem was she wasn't. Spending a few days with her wasn't the issue. What troubled me was in what capacity. She sent another message. This time sounding almost like a plea. "Please just make her wish come true. Just this once." With a sigh, my resolve crumbled. I gave in. The next day, as soon as I opened the door, I saw a little girl standing outside. Next to her was a woman in white, probably in her 30s. They looked at me. I looked back. I figured the woman in white must be the one I've been talking to, lovesick. She gently nudged the little girl forward and said, "Sophia, this is your dad." Sophia, Dad. My mind couldn't catch up. How had I suddenly become this little girl's father? As far as I remembered, I'd only agreed to accompany her for a few days. I never signed up to be her stand-in dad. But it was too late. Hearing that, the little girl's face lit up and she ran toward me. Before I could react, she had already wrapped her arms around my leg. "Daddy, I finally found you." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I crouched down, smiled, and picked her up. "I'm not your daddy. You can call me Uncle. You are my daddy. Mommy has your photo. I look at it every single day. I froze. Sophia. Her mom had my photo. How is that possible? Suddenly, an image flashed through my mind. Evelyn. My whole body shuddered. I looked closely at Sophia. Her eyes, her nose, her mouth. They were exactly like how Evelyn looked when she was little. In that moment, I understood. Lovesick. The woman who had been messaging me for 3 years was Evelyn. Only she knew my weakness, my love for children. But there was something I still didn't get. I had faked my own death. My old identity was erased. How'd she find me? How'd she track me here? Instinctively, I wanted to put Sophia down. After all, she was the daughter of Evelyn and that man. No matter how much I liked kids, I had to draw the line. But Sophia clung tightly to my clothes. Daddy, I miss you so much. Please don't leave me. Her childish voice had some kind of magic. I froze, hands still around her, but the truth was I wasn't her father. That man was. I gave her a bitter smile and gently stroked her head. Do you have your mom's number? I do, she said, holding up her smartwatch and dialing. The call connected. Evelyn's voice came through. Sophia, did you find your daddy? I did. Daddy's holding me right now. She even gave me a kiss on the cheek. Mommy, when are you coming? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Sophia, when I come, you'll have to ask your daddy about that. Sophia looked up at me. Daddy, can Mommy come? Evelyn really played well. She knew I wouldn't turn this into a scene in front of a child. Looking at Sophia's innocent, hopeful face, I gave a helpless nod. Yay. Sophia cheered, twirling in excitement. Mommy, Daddy said you can come. Is that true? Really? Really? Daddy nodded. Sophia beamed with joy. I smiled faintly and gently pinched her cheek. Then from across the street, I saw her, Evelyn, hiding behind a wall. I sighed quietly and set Sophia down. Sophia, can you wait inside for a bit? I'm going to get your mommy. Okay. She was practically jumping with happiness. Sarah came over, took her hand, and said to me with a smile, Don't worry, Mr. Julian. I'll watch over Sophia. I nodded politely and turned across the street. Since I couldn't run anymore, I might as well face it. I figured it was time she and I had a real talk. Getting back together was out of the question. Being just friends, that was my limit. After all, we once truly loved each other. Not making it to the end was just one of life's regrets. But it didn't mean we had to become complete strangers. The light turned green, and I stepped onto the crosswalk. Evelyn was a mess of tears. Her hand clamped tightly over her mouth, desperately trying to stifle her sobs. No one knew she'd gone as far as offering $1 billion bounty just to find me. But now that she had, she didn't dare to actually meet me. She was terrified. Terrified that the pain she'd caused me would drive me to despair. To truly consider ending my own life. But only being able to watch me from across the street, never daring to approach, was a torment she could no longer bear. Plus, their daughter Sophia was growing older, clamoring every day to see her father. At first, showing her my photo had been enough, but gradually it lost its effect. Desperate, she had decided to take a chance. The outcome had been better than she'd dared to hope. She figured that my not immediately lashing out was a good start. Whether we could ever be like we were before, she no longer cared. As long as I returned to her, she would do anything to mend the rifts of the past. Now, I walked towards her. A tidal wave of longing and suppressed grievances crashed over her. She could no longer control her emotions and sprinted desperately towards me. Suddenly, the shriek of tires, a car braking hard, followed by a sickening thud. Evelyn had just darted onto the crosswalk when a speeding car slammed into her, sending her flying 4 or 5 meters. I whipped my head towards the sound. Evelyn lay in a pool of her own blood, motionless, my face drained of color, horror, and fear instantly coursing through me. I sprinted to her side in a few long strides, my trembling hands lifting her from the spreading crimson. Blood gushed from her mouth and nose, and she was drifting in and out of consciousness. I'm so sorry. So sorry. I didn't see her. She just ran into the road. The driver stammered, scrambling out of his car, cradling her blood-soaked body. I roared at the driver. What the hell are you standing there for? Open the goddamn door. Get her to a hospital. The driver snapped out of it and rushed to open the car door. I carefully maneuvered her inside. On the way to the hospital, she regained consciousness. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something, but as soon as she did, a torrent of blood welled up. I knew what she wanted to say. Choking on sobs, I pressed my hand to her mouth, desperately trying to push the torrent of blood back in, but it was no use. The more I pressed, the more it flowed. Fear finally broke me. Tears streaming down my face, I choked out, "Don't talk. I forgive you. Just listen to me. You're going to be okay." Tears welled in the corners of her eyes, tracing paths down her cheeks. I couldn't tell if they were tears of relief, of reunion, or of remorse. The emergency room. I trembled uncontrollably, my eyes glued to the door. Meanwhile, Sophia arrived, Sarah by her side. I had half-coaxed, half-tricked Sophia into going home. I'd already resolved myself. As long as she was all right, nothing else mattered. I'd just consider it a karmic debt from a past life that I was now repaying. 5 hours later, the ER door finally creaked open. A doctor stepped out. I scrambled to my feet, eyes locking onto him. He simply shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said. "We did everything we could." My strength left me and I crumpled to the floor like a soulless husk. I could only mutter. How could this happen? How could this be? I surged to my feet and burst into the room, clutching her lifeless body as I broke down, wailing. But no matter how I cried, my heart tearing itself apart, she offered no response. The cruel reality was unavoidable. She was gone. Though her affair had shattered me, she was the only family I had in this world. This wasn't the end I'd ever wanted. Perhaps it was a unique bond between mother and child. Sophia seemed to sense she'd never see her mother again. She cried and kicked up such a fuss that Sarah had no choice but to bring her back to the hospital, where they ran right into me. "I'm sorry, Mr. Julian," Sarah said. Sophia was adamant about seeing her mom. At the same time, Sophia, still in Sarah's arms, was sobbing and screaming at me. "I don't want Daddy. I want Mommy. Give Mommy back to me." My heart felt like it was bleeding. I felt like a wretched sinner. It was me. I was responsible for Evelyn's death. I made little Sophia lose her mother at such a tender age. Tears stinging my eyes, I took Sophia from Sarah's arms. In that moment, I also took on Evelyn's responsibility to raise her. Evelyn had no other family in this world, only me. Now that she was gone, the duty of raising Sophia was mine to bear, inescapable. Faced with Sophia's desperate cries, I had to resort to a cruel lie. "Mommy's just sleeping. You can go see her, but you mustn't wake her up." Sophia was obedient. So obedient it broke my heart. She quietly went to Evelyn's bedside, lay down silently on the bed, and before long drifted off to sleep. Heartbroken, after managing Evelyn's funeral, I took Sophia back to the city, back to the home I hadn't seen in so long. The wedding photo by her bedside, Evelyn had somehow restored it. So too were the household register and marriage certificate in the safe. Besides these, there was a will and a diary she had written after I left her. The will stipulated the voluntary transfer of her shares in the Sterling Group, naming me as the beneficiary. I didn't want the Sterling Group shares. I wanted to follow her in death, but she had left me Sophia, and that alone stopped me from taking my own life. I reverted to my original name and took over the Sterling Group. Then I set about destroying the agency that had helped me fake my death. Evelyn's diary made it crystal clear. The owner of that company had betrayed me. If it hadn't been for him, Evelyn would never have found me. And if she hadn't found me, she wouldn't have died. So, I considered him one of the main culprits, and he had to pay the price. As for Victor, the man Evelyn had an affair with, I already knew his fate from her diary. I also finally understood why she cheated. It was simply because Victor, just like me, possessed the rare panda blood type. After dealing with the owner of that agency, I poured all my energy into Sophia. There was nothing I could do. Sophia often woke up crying for her mother. But her mother was gone. Now she only had me. I had to be there for her as she grew up. Only after she could take over the Sterling Group could I leave in peace and reunite with Evelyn. At some point, Sophia stopped asking for her mother when she woke up. In the blink of an eye, 20 years passed. Sophia had grown into a beautiful young woman just like her mother. Meanwhile, I had entered my twilight years. Sophia was exceptionally capable. If anything, she surpassed her mother. I thought it was time for me to leave. The second year after Sophia successfully took over the Sterling Group, holding the wedding photo of Evelyn and me on our wedding anniversary, I swallowed the poison I had prepared long ago. Years of longing had already taken their toll, making me sick with grief. It was time to shed this weary body. Time to go to her. But I didn't die after taking the poison. The household staff found me and rushed me to the hospital. My life was saved for the moment, but the consequences were severe. I was completely dependent on an oxygen tube to breathe. Sophia rushed to the hospital upon hearing the news. I wanted to use what little breath I had left to speak with her. After all, once I was gone, she would be all alone in the world. Little did I know, she hadn't come to see me. She was there to remove my oxygen tube. It turned out she had resented me ever since the day Evelyn died, hating me for causing her mother's death. A profound desolation washed over me. Why was my fate so cruel? The woman I loved most had cost me half my life. And now the daughter I had raised was taking the other half, ripping out my oxygen tube and sending me to a resentful death. If there's a next life, I pray I never cross paths with Evelyn again. The taste of it all, it's far too bitter.